Welcome to First Fruits Coffee Training. My name is Dan. Today we are going through how to make the best pour over. Now, before we get into actually pouring, we need to talk about the coffee recipe. Coffee recipe can apply to filter, it can apply to espresso machines, it can apply to cold brew. Anything that we do when we make coffee, we're making it to a recipe. Now, recipes can get way complicated. We're just going to use 3 different points. We're going to use dose, which is the weight of coffee that goes into here. Then we're going to talk about the yield, which is the weight of the water that goes into the pour over. And the last point we're going to talk about is our time, which is the total time it takes from the moment the water hits the top of the coffee until when it drains down through the bed right at the end. Dose, yield, and time. Super important. You can lock that in. Your coffee will be tasting exceptional, whether you're doing pour overs or whether you're doing espresso. Now, in order for us to be able to filter the coffee, if we just put the coffee straight in here, it's going to top through the bottom. We need to use some kind of paper filter. Usually with these Hario V60 ones, give them a bit of a fold like that, and then you can plonk them straight in. Alright, so the last thing we need to do before we actually start pouring or even grinding our coffee is we need to figure out what our dose is going to be and what our yield is going to be. Filter coffee is generally made to a 1:16 part ratio, meaning that for every 1 gram of coffee, there's going to be 16 grams of water. Usually, for a single person having a coffee, you're going to do around 16 grams, meaning that we're going to be pouring in for our yield 256 grams of water. In other videos, we are going to talk about water temperature and we're going to talk about water in general, right? When we make filter coffee, we don't just grab water out of the tap. We are using water which has been purified by an RO, which is so pure, we actually need to add things back into it in order for it to be able to extract the coffee. So we use a magnesium and a sodium in order to be able to put a harder and a buffer back into the water so that it can extract. That's going to be in a later video. For now, we're going to heat our water up to 93 degrees, and then we are going to use our coffee. Today we are using Costa Rica red honey. It's absolutely delicious. We're going to put it in. After you put it in, we want to settle the bed a little bit so that it gets nice and flat. From here we're going to hit tare. We're going to turn our little timer on, and we are going to start pouring. Now the first part is called the bloom. Alright, what's happening is we are pouring our water into our coffee and it's starting to degas. Carbon dioxide is starting to run off it, it's starting to bubble, it's moving all about. We want to let that happen. It's going to happen. We want to do it with a little amount of water as possible so that it's going to over extract a little bit in this form, and then we're allowing it to degas, and then with the rest of our water throughout the rest of our recipe, it's going to also extract more of the coffee as well as water a little bit down that over extraction which occurred in the beginning. Alright, and so when we are pouring in, we want to do concentric circles, not going too fast, not going too slow. We're going to do 2 different pours. So in this one, I've done my first bloom, which was 40 grams of water for 30 seconds. And then at 30 seconds, I'm going to start my second pour, which I'm going to pour up to 250. And then at a minute, I'm going to go and start pouring again all the way up to 256. Concentric circles. We don't want to see parts of the water which are still floating on top. 256. Now, the time hasn't finished yet. I've stopped pouring, but we need to wait for it to clear the bed. We can stop our time and see where we're at. Usually with this recipe, depending on the coffee, we're looking a bit over 2 minutes to 2.5 minutes. Somewhere between that is a good part to aim when you're starting. Usually when you're going to start doing it, you're going to have to figure out the grind set. So usually, if our coffee is going to run through too quickly, we need to make the coffee a little bit finer in order to slow it down a little bit. The other way we can slow it down a bit is how we pour. A few different ways. We want this time to run just over 2 minutes. So this one was actually a little bit quick. We want it to run, probably now is when I actually wanted it to finish. I finished about 5 to 10 seconds early. So when we're making our filters, we are concentric circles, make sure that before we start, we've got our dose, we've got our yield, we've got our time. Good place to start, 16 grams, dose in, 256 grams, water in, 2 minutes 15 to 2 minutes 30. Then we need a taste. If we are tasting funny things, over and under extraction are definitely a thing, but it also takes a little bit in order to understand what that means. If we taste a funny flavor, it's usually either going to be over or under extracted. Now, if you taste a funny flavor and it's dry, it's almost always going to be over extracted, meaning that you've taken too much in, right? If you taste a funny flavor, sometimes or often it can be sour, which means that we need to fix how we do this, either to extract more or to extract less. That's not going to be covered in this. We're going to be doing that in a later video. So that's it. That's all you need to know. Dose, yield, time. We need our V60, we need a paper, we need some hot water, we need some delicious coffee, and a lovely Japanese mug to drink it out of. Thank you for watching. We'll see you soon. If you could like, subscribe to this channel, we have a huge amount of content coming out in order to help educate you to make coffee better at home. Thanks.